I'd like to thank all of our panelists today, Hannah from Dow Jones, Lisa from Sleep Number, and Natalie from TG. And as you know, today we're here to talk about personalization, which is a multifaceted topic. And to kick us off, I would just like to ask all of our panelists to give us their thoughts on what personalization means to them and to their company. So Lisa, I'll kick off with you with that question, if you'd like to give us an introduction to personalization at Sleep Number.
Sure, would love to start. So Sleep Number and personalization, it's really all about relevance. So both our customers that are insiders that own our product and those that we are hoping to have become insiders, it's about talking to them in a way that's relevant to them. So not necessarily even with offers or promotions, but they could perhaps be in our segment that is interested in recovery from an injury, sports injury, right? Or some other type of injury. And it's talking to them in that manner so that they know that we know them, and providing all the information we know about them in their communications. So between our direct mail and email communications, it's having consistent messaging and relevant messaging.
Great, thank you. Well, Hannah, I know with Dow Jones and you're in more of a B2B setting, but we keep seeing more and more consumerization of the B2B space. How does what you do and your view of personalization align with or differ from what it means to Lisa?
I will say there are similarities, of course. B2B has definitely taken a page from the B2C playbook around understanding the consumer and certainly the democratization of their experience. We all have access to lots and lots of data, and we wear that hat when we're a consumer, and we wear that hat when we're, at work as well. But for us, there are also similar undertones there to what Lisa said about creating compelling and persuasive content journeys for our customers and our prospects. And we spent a lot of time focusing on understanding our customers, who they are, what their pain points are, what kinds of content and news and data they need to make really important decisions in their private life and in their business lives as well.
Great. Well, I'm glad that there's some overlap there and some commonality. And then Natalie, you're in a unique situation as well, because I know that you're selling to businesses, but those consumers are very important. So what does it mean to you to personalize an experience in that all important B2B to C space?
I couldn't agree more with what's been said. It's understanding the motivation of the different audience that you're speaking to. So, we have our consumers that might purchase our products off the shelf without the aid of a hairdresser. What motivates them to purchase that product versus a salon owner, one who may be a hairdresser themselves, the other who may not be. And those two motivational things are going to totally shape how we create content that's meaningful, that again addresses the pain points or helps them in their daily lives. So it's really about that motivation and targeting that in your communication.
Well, thanks to all of you for your answers. It's good to see that even though your businesses are unique, that there's some common challenges and some common approaches where personalization is concerned. I am curious though, if the way you view personalization is shared across the organization and what you do to make sure there's alignment with the rest of your colleagues and with the executive team. So maybe we can take that question in the same order, and Lisa, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, within the teams that I lead, CRM and loyalty, we know a lot of information about our insiders. Those are people that own Sleep Number products, as well as our inquiries, people that are interested in purchasing Sleep Number products. And we take our segmentation within our direct mail programs, email, and within our loyalty program to a very personalized level, since we know so much information. However, my partners in marketing don't have all of that information. So they're more on what I would say the segmentation journey. So they are, reaching out to different audiences based on their interest. So they might need they may be looking for a new bed because they want to recover from an injury faster. They may have heard of us through our NFL partnership or through our partnership with Katie Couric Media or Thrive Global. And they are going to be talking to them in those ways. And we're getting deeper into that segmentation front. So our senior media team, our senior leadership team, is very interested in the whole segmentation journey and getting tighter on that, and then advancing that toward what we have in CRM. One of the great things our CRM team can do is, I'm going to hold up direct mail, which is going to surprise you, but our direct mail is a huge driver of business for our company. And part of the reason it's such a big driver is it's very differentiated and it's very, very highly personalized. So this happens to be an insider appreciation of that. We have a lot of millions and millions of Sleep Number bed owners, and they are about 25% of our business each year, believe it or not. They repeat at a high amount. And this piece is really personalized. It's talking to Marie. It's very specific about how long she's been in our brand, about how long she's been a member of our Insider Rewards program, about the number of rewards she has to spend with us, about the number of people she's brought into the brand. And this we know every time we do this and every time we go deeper, we derive higher relevance and higher sales to the brand. We integrate this then into our email programs, as well as into our online Inner Circle Rewards program. So this depth in CRM is a huge driver of Sleep Number business. Segmentation, of course, is important to CRM and loyalty, but we're helping the rest of the company get to the level of detail that we're at.
Lisa, I'm so happy you held up that direct mail piece. Talk to organizations all the time, and I tell them that print is far from dead, and if
Not
used properly, it can be such an important way of reaching customers.
the profitability of these pieces is crazy. Even going down to the lowest segments that I have to mail to, they're still really profitable.
Good to hear. Well, Anna, do you see some of the same things in your organization where perhaps one team is at a highly personalized, detailed level, another team might still be at the segmentation level? I would love to hear how that alignment is going for you.
Yeah, I think in the B2B space, we as an industry have actually shifted quite a bit toward an account-based experience or an account-based strategy. And by definition, it behooves us to align. So that alignment includes marketing teams, sales teams, and customer success teams. So we've spent the greater part of the last 2 to 3 years pivoting toward that account-based marketing and sales campaign planning. We spend tons of time aligning around who are our ideal customers, our ideal personas, and then we've crafted those campaigns to meet their needs. And when I say crafted, I mean weekly meetings, lots and lots of discussion around the nuance of that customer's experience, of that industry's experience, what their pain points are, what their challenges are. And then we really super serve them. We've built out, 60 plus content journeys. They can really dine versus snack on that experience. They can pick and choose. And the platform has really helped us to align because we're all looking at that same data. All of our experiences, and we try to make them as robust as possible, are data driven. We look at what they're ingesting. We look at what is popular, when it is popular, and what drives that value for them. So alignment is key to what we're doing. And we've had so much progress there, and it's been so gratifying. So thank you for asking that question. And also, Lisa, I love tactile marketing. we're making a big push this year. So thanks for holding up the pamphlet. I'm sure my team is sitting there going, yay.
Well, and thank you, Hannah. It's good to hear about that alignment across the entire customer journey. It's one of the things I was just speaking about in my presentation. And Natalie, do you see that same alignment between marketing and all of those salespeople who are out there working hard, talking to people in salons?
I will say it's also moved quite a bit in our space as well. I think that in our specific experience, our digital journey included a transformation of how we go to market. So alignment was definitely critical. And I think if I could give 3 pieces of advice to people who are seeking alignment across different groups, I would say 1, make sure you set the description or the understanding of a term or a program or an event, because people may have different thoughts around what that means, and they may not ask, because especially if you're working up and down an organization, they may not want to tell you that they don't know. The second would be always enter the conversation thinking about the perspective of the team or group that you're speaking to. For my supply chain team, segmentation and our B2B e-commerce site and all of that goes with that was a totally different thing for them than it was for the sales team, who were currently managing those customers in a face-to-face experience. And the last thing I would say is be realistic about expectations, manage expectations. You don't want to undersell yourself. You definitely want to push for how deep you can go, how much more you can learn, how more personalized you can be, but also you have to be very clear about the expectation, how quickly, how much resource, how much money, those things, because, you know, in digital, there's always this thought that we'll just flip a switch and it'll happen magically. And I don't think that's exactly the case, but it's definitely important to keep pushing and moving it forward. And we've definitely made a lot of strides at TG.
Well, those are some good tips, and it actually leads me to my next question, which is about establishing goals for a personalization program and then driving the execution of that program. So, Natalie, let's stick with you. How do you go beyond those tips and recommendations to really start thinking about personalizing the more holistic journey with all of the different people that need to be involved from your team and with the sales team and others that are all going to connect with those salon owners and ultimately represent the brand to those consumers?
Well, I'll say that because we had a very analog route to market historically, so the salon professional industry was still relying and still does on human beings going into salons and interacting with those owners or those hairdressers and getting the sale, but also understanding who they are, what they like, when their birthday is, you know, all these little pieces of information that they use to craft a relationship that drives the business forward. We had that analog model that we started to try to replicate on our B2B environment. So how could we get some of that information digitally, not to replace that analog experience, but to grow the business or offer more breadth to the people we could touch. So we started small. We started just on a promotional level because that was data we had readily available. How much did they buy? What did they buy? When did they buy it? And now we're starting to get a lot more interesting in terms of trying to understand that motivation piece that we talked about earlier. So for example, even within our B2B environment, if you are a salon owner that is not a hairdresser, you might be motivated by things like inventory, cost, frequency of requirement, the usage. If you are a salon owner that is a hairdresser, you may be much more motivated by the creativity, by the educational support of those products, by what it can do, the style it can give your client, etc. So now we're starting to peel that layer back to really think about beyond promotion. Maybe it's not a new promotion. It could be the same promotion, same product, but perhaps now it's just a different message. And how can that garner a better response from our customers? So it's been really exciting and very difficult, but really interesting to learn from the experience and see how we can constantly improve.
Good to hear about that evolution, and thank you for taking through some of how you started and where it's going. And Lisa, I'd like to come to you with the same question. I know that there's some great CRM programs that you've described and loyalty programs that are what really helps Sleep Number engage with its customers. But can you take us back to where that started and how it evolved to get to where it is today?
Yeah, so it all starts with the store experience, much like going in to the hair salon. You know, we are very fortunate that we have stores that provide an experience to someone when they go in. And it starts with building that lifelong relationship with the sales professional. And that sales professional usually spends between an hour and an hour and a half, you know, making sure somebody's picking out the perfect bed for them and educating them about the bed. And the sales professional can tell us a lot of information that I can use then in that marketing, right? They can tell us, they can put into the system why the person came in, you know, what's important to them. Do they have back pain issues? Do they have temperature issues? And we can use all that information in the journey with that customer. So it starts with the field, then it's handed off to our delivery drivers, right? Who deliver that product and also continue to build the relationship. And once that's done, they're on their bed. They now have Sleep IQ, which is the brains of the bed, right? It is a platform that tells them how they sleep and encourages them with tips on how to sleep better, which then ties into my Inner Circle Rewards program, which helps reward them for using Sleep IQ, and which also provides tons of content for our insiders to engage with each week. Every Monday, I do a report out on what is the top content that our insiders have engaged with. And last week, there were 4 Sleep Number blogs, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 that our insiders engaged with. They were about, no joke, sleep and laughter. You know, it's important, right? How to sleep well before a vacation. How does breakfast impact your sleep? And then there was a Thrive article by our CEO, Shelley, on how sleep strengthens your resilience. So these are all things that really resonate with customers. And, you know, vacation's important. You know, people are taking vacations right now. So we try to provide content that's time-stamped as well, relevant for the time. So we have a lot of ways to continue to connect that customer journey. And all of those things I just mentioned, on top of the emails we send, the direct mail we send, and the activities we put in our loyalty program, you know, they all go together and work together. And we found kind of the secret sauce to keep people who, you know, shop for a bed every 8 to 10 years engaged with the brand on a weekly, if not daily basis.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm really glad to hear about the way you've connected the dots, and it's also reassuring to hear that you fully understand that the customer experience doesn't end with the purchase, especially for a brand like Sleep Number, where in fact the experience is just beginning when they get to sleep in that bed. I wish more brands would take that on board when they're thinking about personalization. And Hannah, moving on to you, you mentioned that you are trying to be as relevant and as persuasive as possible with the companies that you work with, but you still have to develop a lot of content for individuals. Can you take us through what that really means for Dow Jones and some of the programs that you have in place to ensure that that happens?
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. It's a great question, because when we embarked on the journey a couple years ago, and we first started to plan it out, we really looked to the data to analyze which companies we resonated best with from a product line standpoint. And then we also looked at the personas. So who are we actually selling to at those companies? And we try to super serve them as an individual. So when they're coming to our website, what are they experiencing? And fortunately, actually, with Oracle, we're able to see exactly what kinds of content each person is ingesting. So we built out very, very robust content journeys that speak to the company, but also follow the path of the individual. So that if a visitor is coming into our risk and compliance resource site, for example, and they are ingesting and reading lots of information about our due diligence products, for example, where they're going to get an email Of course, it's going to be personalized with their name, of course, with their company, but it's also going to be specific to their journey. What did they read? Did they read about due diligence? Oh, they did. Let's serve them the next piece of content because we know they're interested in it because it speaks to them and their unique position at their company and what they're going through right then in the moment. And those things are automated. So we've crafted those and we tweak them all the time. Daily, weekly sometimes, but they're always on and they're always moving forward. And we've seen great success personalizing that journey. The other thing we looked at was where are our customers? So if we have a global client base and we have a global prospect base, so why were we really primarily in English? So we spent the better part of this year also translating all of those experiences and that site journey into those different languages. And we're still going, we have more. And then we also looked at when they opened their emails. So we, incorporated send time optimization, which has helped us quite a bit. It's new for us, but we've seen, a 300% improvement in open rates by just saying, well, when do they want to get those emails, right? Versus, oh, I know on Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m., those do really well, which is always like the bread and butter of the marketer, right? Is we look at the data and then we do more of it, right? It's a lookalike kind of experience, but with technology, you can make different decisions and better decisions for the customer. When does that individual want to get emails? Not when do I want to send that email? What's best for me? So it's really about obsessing with the customer journey and with the prospect's experiences.
Great, thank you. Always a good idea to listen to the customer and get their preferences on those communications. Well, continuing with you, Hannah, how do you move forward from here? I mean, you talked about technology and content, you talked about CRM. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for further alignment in Dow Jones in terms of getting even better with what you're doing?
Sure. From the professional information, systems, our suite of products, we have spent a lot of time. I do demand gen in the acquisition, top of funnel experience, so driving that awareness and consideration. But we're actually doing a lot more of the full customer journey. So what does it look like to engage our customers more throughout the year? What kinds of campaigns can we do to support the sales process? So if somebody has open opportunities, how can we better support our sales team with the kinds of content experiences that I've talked about, earlier? And then, just using more and more data and all of the full suite of tactics that we have available to us, including the tactile marketing like Lisa uses, but also, of course, different kinds of digital experiences that are, exciting and delightful and sort of surprise our customer.
I love that concept of surprise and delight. So I'm glad you added. Thank you. Well, and Lisa, what about at Sleep Number? I mean, you already said that you've done a great job of connecting what happens in the store with that experience and the purchase experience and the delivery, and then continuously engaging with that customer after the fact. So where do you go from here? What more would you like to connect in terms of data, channels, or different types of interactions?
So we've done a really good job on people that have purchased from us. Where I'd like to continue to evolve is on the demand gen side. So, we have what we don't know necessarily is, like I said, the segmentation journey of where they came from us that ties into all of our media channels. So that is a huge opportunity for us, to grow that. And also the whole lead generation thing, we do that. We do a lot of great things with that. But our field, we need to help them understand the importance of giving us as much information they know. Even if somebody doesn't buy, it's still an opportunity for us to market with them or to share content with them to get them to purchase maybe at a later level. So it's the whole education process that we've done with people that purchase from us, we need to do with people that are not purchasing from us, and to continue to involve that experience.
Great, thanks. And Natalie, you mentioned that you are initiating these great programs and doing a really good job of helping the salespeople understand that salon owners might be very different and have different needs and different motivations. What are you learning about gaining that alignment across the organization?
I will say that what we're learning and exploring is how do we move the interaction from transactional to more engagement. So similar to what Lisa is saying around Sleep Number and the people not purchasing, how do we explore people that may have an affinity for the brand, maybe are influential in their community, maybe have experienced us through education, for example, but maybe haven't bought a product. That doesn't mean they're any less potentially valuable to us. So that, again, is something that the salesperson might know because they may happen to know that this person is active in their small business community or have be very influential amongst highly influential stylists. But that's something now, how do you crack that from a digital perspective and really value the people that may not have purchased a ton of product yet, but have engaged in other ways with your organization and can help spread the word to grow sales in a different way. So we're at the infancy still, but that's the next step goal in that interaction with our customers.
Well, it may be early days, but I think just coming to that understanding of the need to take the time to value those people and get to know those people and engage with them is pretty important for the organization. So thank you.
Sure.
Well, time to switch gears and actually move to something perhaps a little bit more difficult. I know it hasn't been easy for any of you to get where you are. These are some great results, but we know it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of investment. So I'd like to understand some of the struggles that you've had and what you've learned from those struggles that you could share with the audience. So Hannah, I'll start with you. You mentioned data earlier. Has that been easy? I'm guessing not. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about the struggles and how you've overcome that and any advice you would have for other organizations.
Thanks for asking about data. I absolutely have embraced data-driven decision-making. But I will say, like many, I suspect, Natalie and Lisa, we all struggle with keeping a clean CRM and having all of our various stakeholders align around what that means. So for us, many times we might locate a company list, for example, of targets, but then in our CRM, some of them maybe are not in there correctly. There's a bit of a data hygiene issue. And so the biggest struggle on the data front is really to keep that CRM clean, to make sure that if we're going to go to the customer and go to market with a campaign targeting specific companies, that there's a salesperson on the receiving end who's also linked arms with us and is also waiting for that response from the customer and also reaching out. So we really do rely upon that alignment and that clean data before we embark upon the campaign. And many times there are specific workflows to get that done before we can really launch.
Well, and Natalie, I saw you agreeing with Hannah on the point about data. You also mentioned that you're getting started with a lot of things and you've had great progress, but you still have some work to do. What are the challenges for you when it comes to just wrapping your arms around how big the job is and moving forward?
I think there's two big ones. One is because it's so large, you get this paralysis that you don't want to move forward because everything has to be perfect before you can launch it. And in the digital landscape, that's not the case. Obviously, perfection is the goal, but you just have to start. And when you start, make sure to close the loop and review what you've done to see what did you learn from that. I think the other struggle that we've had is getting non-digital people to adopt and own on some level the things that you're doing. And the biggest thing there is to just really guide them down that rosy path. When we launched our B2B commerce site, I asked some of our salespeople and some of our customers who were historically non-digital to go to the site in the test environment and tell me what they thought. And the response that I got from one person was, well, I'm not a digital expert, so I don't know how I'm going to help you. And I said, if you have to be a digital expert to navigate this website, I have not done my job. So I want you to go on there, just try it out. Tell me what you think. I don't care if you don't like the color, whatever it is, just give me that experience from your point of view so that I can help inform how we shift and change it going forward. And that's the big thing I tell to my team. You can always shift it and change it. That's the joy of digital. Not only can you, you should be. So constantly getting that feedback is a good thing.
Well, I couldn't agree more that you need to be fast rather than perfect. But while you're on that journey, collecting feedback so that you can continuously improve it is so important. And thank you for sharing that story. Getting someone who didn't feel they were expert enough to be your guinea pig in that case. I think that's the kind of work that it takes. Well, Lisa, with regard to struggle, I think that of all the journeys that we've talked about today, Sleep Number has certainly come a long way and has been spending a lot of time with its CRM and loyalty programs. But I can't believe it was 100% easy. Can you share with us some of the headwinds that you ran into and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so when I was hired, Sleep Number always had a loyalty program, but it was about offers and discounts and referral rewards. I always knew that if we had an engagement platform, it would do wonderful things for us, but not a lot of people understood the vision for that, right? So, especially the field teams, right? Because they're all about selling and the offers are what's important to them. So building the platform and showing the results, and the results meaning how people that are engaged in the program are more valuable to Sleep Number. Not just because they buy more, but they are then our word of mouth engine of Sleep Number. They are the beloved, they are our advocates that love the brand. And it's all about advocacy. And what Sleep Number wants to do is we want to become a beloved brand. That's been our aspiration for years and years. And this is one of the tools to help us get there. So the biggest challenge was getting everybody on board, right? It was easy to get the senior leaders on board. They saw the results. I could show them financially what it meant to us, but getting our field team. And I'm happy to say the program's been up for 4 years now. It took a couple years and they are all on board and they have a metric that measures if they're getting people enrolled in the program because they understand just how important it is.
Really good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'd like to end on a high note. So we've talked about some of the struggles. I'd like to shift gears and talk about what it feels like when you get it right and how the organization can build on that momentum and continue these sorts of initiatives. So Hannah, starting with you, can you put into words how it feels with you and your team and across the organization when you just get it right and the message resonates and the customer's happy and you see business success? I mean, I get excited just asking about it, but I'm sure it must feel really great for all of you to know that you've done that.
I have to say the word that comes to mind is rock star, because I really do think that when it all comes together and we really sort of overhaul that full experience, the web, nurture emails, our SDR team, the sales experience, the content that we make available to our sales team and that they can then provide to the customer directly, we all feel like rock stars because the data proves it out, right? The numbers are there, both what we might call vanity metrics now, right? So what is the bounce rate on the website all the way down to that pipeline and revenue number. And it's like a true rock star moment when it comes to, your job and the value that you're providing to your business and to your customer.
Everyone should get to feel like a rock star in his or her or their job. So thank you for sharing that. Well, and Lisa, you mentioned that you really want Sleep Number to be a beloved brand, and you have some real, not just fans, but advocates for Sleep Number. What advice would you give to our listeners and viewers about what it takes and how to get started to achieve what you've achieved?
I would say, do your research on what's right for your brand. I had a good year to research what I wanted to do with this program because we were going through an ERP and I knew we wouldn't get any support from our IT team to do it. So I had a good year to research and I always knew what the vision was. And it was finding a partner, which was CrowdTwist, that could execute that vision very quickly and easily, and who could also be a strategic partner with me to evolve the program. So I didn't do a RFP. I researched who could be that partner that I could implement things with. And Rockstar is a great way to describe the feeling, but the best feeling I get is when our insiders send us love notes, which they do, how much they love what Sleep Number's doing for their life. So not just the product, but how the brand truly cares about them. So within the program, I have an activity where if they want to tell us something, just free form, they can tell us. Now you would think they'd be complaining, right? This doesn't work, that doesn't work. But no, it's love notes. So Vanessa, who is my operational arm that runs the program, it's just amazing the things she hears from our insiders. And on our earnings call, our CEO is always asking for stories to share. I can pull up 1,000 stories, in a couple minutes, which is great. And these are stories that are relevant on the importance the brand is to how important the brand is to our insiders. So we have, I think, the best job in the company. So.
Great answers. We've had rock stars, we've had love notes. So to you to finish up. I know you agree with Lisa on education and the value of that. Can you tell us more about the benefits of having more people educated and what that would mean to the organization?
Well, I'll say the success moments, my advice on success moments is to never underestimate the small success, the small win, because that's the momentum that you need to keep things going. Once you get that momentum, to answer your question, Rusty, I encourage non-digital people or people in all areas of the organization to expose themselves to digital things, understand little parts of the world, because what I think the value there is, and where the future success comes, is having someone who's a bit outside it to view it from their perspective. I'll say that some of the ideas that we're now incorporating into the future have come from our least digital groups, but exposing them a little bit to something that they hadn't experienced before raised in their mind a pain point that I now can go and address or figure out a solve for that would not have occurred to me because I'm not a hairdresser, or I'm not every day in the field interacting with customers, or I'm not in my customer service team dealing with phone calls. Those are the inputs that I need, that I can now think about how do I improve that experience. And then if you do, even on a little level, that person, that group feels more motivated to give you more information, and you build from there. So I think it's super critical, never underestimate those small wins, because they are great and they're the step to the next win.
That's super advice. And I think you're right. Those small steps and becoming exposed to something you didn't know doesn't just help you from an educational perspective. If you get it right, who knows? You might get love notes and you might become a rock star.
For sure.
Thank you for pulling everything together. And I'd like to thank all three of our panelists today, Hannah from Dow Jones, Lisa from Sleep Number, and Natalie from TG. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate that.